Welcome to the Same Day Podcast, where we discuss driving incremental business growth and other topics related to real estate, property management, and entrepreneurship. Now, to the show at hand.
Hello there, Yoni Schmidt here, hosting today's episode of the Same Day Podcast, where I connect with top business and real estate leaders. Past guests include Chip Gabrino, local restaurateur entrepreneur, Elliot Nelson, the CEO of the McNally's Group, Morgan Martin of Merrill Lynch, and Yaron Pacht of Centtive Tax Strategists. Today's episode is brought to you by Keyrenter Property Management. At Keyrenter Property Management, we are a full-service property management company helping our clients buy, renovate, and operate real estate assets. We help our clients build wealth while taking the headache out of property management. That is why no matter what rental you have, a single-family home, a condo, townhouse, apartments, we have the management solutions that you need. Go to keyrenterpmc.com or email us at info@keyrenterpmc.com. Today, I am so excited and we are thrilled to have Meagan McCollum, Associate Professor of Finance and the Director of the Center for Real Estate Studies at the University of Tulsa, joining us. With a rich background in real estate finance, sustainability, and banking, Meagan is shaping the next generation of industry leaders while tackling some of the most pressing issues in the real estate world today. Her work bridges the gap between academia and real-world challenges of the real estate markets, and we are excited to dive in and learn from her insights. Meagan, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you. So glad to be here. Doing great.
Love it. Thank you. Meagan, let's hop right in. Can you share a little bit about how you became the director of the Center for Real Estate Studies at TU and what inspired your journey into real estate and finance and becoming an educator?
Sure. So the Center for Real Estate Studies at the University of Tulsa is a new initiative. It's only in its second year. So we're still getting our name out there, getting our programs up and running. But this is my 10th year as a professor in the real estate space. Previously, I worked at City University of New York, Baruch College. So I was in New York City for a few years and came to the University of Tulsa with the idea of essentially reinvigorating real estate education at the university. We'd had a program in the 80s and 90s that had kind of died off as different faculty members had left, and I saw a real opportunity to bring this kind of programming to the students at our university. So just a little bit about my background. I come to things from really data-driven perspectives, and my kind of introduction to real estate was as a graduate student in finance. I did some statistical analysis for a time I was in Alabama. So it's the state of Alabama realtors, their market trends, housing issues, and was just kind of fascinated by, the intersection between the tangible asset and the financial asset in the real estate market. And so, I kind of pivoted away from just pure finance to being in the real estate finance space because I just found both sides of that so interesting, and went on, got a PhD, and decided to stay in the education space because I really loved the opportunities I had to continue learning, the opportunities I have to share knowledge and insights and bring together people from the academic space and from the practitioner space, and all in service of educating that next generation of leaders.
I love that. Yeah, some of my favorite moments are coming to the program and being invited by Professor Seagraves and talking to the students about all sorts of things such as property management, creative financing. The students are so smart and asking really poignant questions that are very relevant to today. Before we dive into that maybe a little bit and talk about the intersection of the tangible and the financial, assets, right? And what you're seeing maybe in the market today, and you'll share some of your insights. Tell me a little bit about the goals for the Center for Real Estate Studies, and how does it serve the students and the broader real estate community?
So with our Center for Real Estate Studies, we really have three different pillars of what we're focusing on. We're focusing on um, continuing and expanding our engagement with the professional community. We're expanding and deepening the curriculum for our students so that they gain the relevant knowledge and insight to propel them forward in their career. And alongside that, we're doing research into current real estate issues of the day. And those three things I really think of like three legs on a stool, that they all kind of support the same mission of advancing real estate knowledge. And so that's, we have, being in the University of Tulsa, we have kind of a focus on the Oklahoma market and regionally, but some of the issues that we're studying and sustainability, what we're looking at as far as commercial real estate financing, they're national issues, even though we take a little bit more of a local lens sometimes with our work.
Love that. Yeah. Can you talk to us a little bit about the research that you are currently engaged in?
Sure. So one of the projects that Dr. Seagraves and I are working on together, alongside one of our colleagues from economics, Dr. Jason Walters, is looking at the impact of natural disasters on land use. So, with the California wildfires, with hurricanes, with damaging winds, this is a really salient issue. No matter where you're located, there's going to be some kind of climate risk, and your insurance company cares about it, so you should too. So we're taking in this project a lens of what happens to areas when they have gone through one of these natural disasters, and essentially now you have land that was previously occupied by something that is now essentially vacant again. And the principle of real estate of like, you should always put on the land what's the highest and best use of the land. The further you get away from building something on that land, the further you could drift from that principle. What made sense 50 years ago to put there may no longer make sense, but it's already there. So, what are you going to do about it? So we look and see that after some of these natural disasters, we actually do see a lot of land use changes, and we see a lot of evolution in what developers are choosing to build on these sites. And that has really interesting implications for how industries co-locate next to each other, where we need to think about what sorts of zoning code amendments we might need, what impediments that we have in place today that might be impeding progress. And just because we have this natural disaster, no one wants that, right? Highly damaging. It's great cost of life and property, but it does give us this lens to see that given the opportunity, there is a need for different kinds of development. So what can we do as a real estate community to help incentivize and make the path clear for redevelopment activity that is feasible? So that's kind of our working thesis in that project, which is still in progress. Another project that I'd like to highlight is one that we do alongside students. So every summer we do a project. It's called the Tulsa Undergraduate Research Challenge. It's sponsored by our university. And it's not just for real estate students. Students across the university work on different projects with professors in their areas of expertise. But Dr. Seagraves and I run a real estate housing focused project. And so we've taken, the city of Tulsa somewhat as kind of a test case, a laboratory, and looked at different building permit issuances on the residential and commercial side, different zoning code amendment changes, different TIFs, you name it. And we have a student group that's been looking at what's happened in the past in Tulsa, what are changes that are being proposed, and how can that serve. The city's identified we have a housing shortage over the next 10 years. Can we identify bottlenecks? Can we analyze the data that's provided by our city and our community partners to help propose some solutions to this area. So that's a project that I love working on because it introduces our students to the idea of analytical research as well. And they always have a hard time with there is no single correct answer, but that's the real world.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a test where you either get the answer right or wrong, but presenting them with an open-ended problem, giving them the tools to look at it different ways, and then proposing a solution, which may not be the solution.
Right. Yeah, that is definitely how the real world works. Tell us, I guess, a little bit from from the second project that you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
What are you noticing in the city of Tulsa, maybe in Oklahoma City? What are the
Mm-hmm.
broader trends that you and your students and, as you mentioned, Dr. Seagraves and the doctor of economics
Yeah.
that you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
what are you noticing? What are the trends, and where are we trending towards?
So the really interesting thing that's going on, I would say, probably in the past 3 to 5 years, is that cities across the U.S. are getting a little bit more creative. That you've seen broad sweeping changes in how individual cities approach housing.
Hmm.
And it takes time for all those changes to filter through to results that you can see, but you have different cities experimenting with what does it mean to reduce or eliminate parking requirements? What does it mean to allow an accessory dwelling unit by right within your city limits? What does it mean to have a more streamlined permitting procedure? How are those things? How do those things actually play out? Are there unintended consequences? Are there things that we could do? We could go even further with. And so, those are some of the issues that we've looked at in past summers, and will continue to look this year and beyond.
Yeah.
Those sort of changes.
Yeah, interesting that you say streamlined permitting process, because I just had coffee on Sunday with an electrician here in
Mhm.
Tulsa, and we were talking about a very large project that we are working on and bidding on. The permit cost is going to be close to six figures just
Mhm.
for pulling the permits, and he said, the permitting at the city is sometimes cumbersome and difficult, and he wishes it was a lot more streamlined. So, um, have you done any work and research on how we might accomplish something like that?
So that is definitely an active area of inquiry because it's, even here locally in Tulsa, it's something that has been evolving, but I would probably say hasn't been evolving fast enough to meet the demands of our
Hmm.
community. So I like to look at what's the lowest hanging fruit, what's going to be the easiest things to solve, and I just want to get paper out of the process.
Hmm.
um, Eliminate points in the process where there is a guy or gal at an office that's open certain hours that I have to physically go down and file physical paper at.
Yeah.
All those things, things can get lost, misplaced, timing doesn't work out. All those, I mean, time is money in finance and especially in real estate. So every day that processes are delayed or you aren't able to get a clear answer to a question you have about the process is another day of costs for you.
Hmm.
If not actual cost, opportunity cost. And so that's kind of the first thing that's, in my laser vision of what cities should do is do more to automate processes so that you don't
Hmm.
have to rely on kind of 1980s and 90s technology to solve 2025 questions.
Yeah. Yes. So just like doing things online faster. They don't accept Amex, so don't try to pay with an Amex. They do accept Visa, but you have to be down there in person. Learn that the hard way. Let's talk, I guess, about maybe some of the challenges that your students, Dr. Seagraves, see for real estate professionals in the year ahead, and how they might, prepare for these hurdles. When you look at 2024, for example, and you talk about real estate agents, right? I think the statistic is that 70 or 80% of real estate agents didn't even sell one property in 2024. Lots of moving parts and factors that come into play here. What do you envision for 2025?
Well, we heard a lot during 2024, survive to 2025. Well, we're here. We made it this far, but people who were just surviving are probably not going to be able to survive for too much longer. So this is where you start to see kind of the wheat separate from the chaff, and you see the people who really have cash on hand, who have deep knowledge and resources, and have a diversified portfolio of either properties or skills. They're the ones who are able to find creative solutions in a relatively tough environment. I mean, you can't have this conversation without talking about interest rates, right? We're all, we hoped that we would be further in, the easing process than we are now. But, the reality is we're not. And, we may not get back to the costs that the rates that we saw a couple years ago anytime soon, or even ever. Like, those are historically lows that we were coming off of. So, it's not like real estate didn't exist before low rates. We need to go back and maybe learn some lessons from those who came before us, people who survived previous high rate environments, and understand what from that can we transfer to today's environment, and start executing on those strategies instead of just holding tight, like maybe rates will come down, maybe they'll come down, and then it'll all be okay. If you are underwriting to a low rate, your project only pencils in when you have a low rate, you just have a pile of risk. And you've created no cushion for yourself. And I frankly don't have a whole lot of sympathy for people who gave themselves no wiggle room. There's always things that come up. You always need contingencies, and of course, even the best laid plans, when you have a big enough change, they can hurt even the most well thought out investment or deal or operation. But what we've seen largely so far, people who were really caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, or folks who never had any buffer to start with. And so thinking about creative ways as a real estate professional, you can create a buffer for yourself, whether it's a capital buffer, of funds, or a human capital buffer of, can I expand my skill set to do other things that I haven't done before in this space? So, if I'm a residential real estate agent, what else can I do with that skill set in the real estate space that's going to give me a little breathing room until there's more market activity in kind of my home habitat?
I guess the high interest rate is indicative of a strong economy, right? Is what I understand. Is that how you would interpret it as well?
Well, it's usually associated with that, but it's not that a strong economy can only exist in a high rate environment. It just means when we have a higher rate, we're still worried about prices. And we can't, if we want to maintain, full employment, the nice economic growth and activity that we want, then we have to, keep the economy from running too hot. We don't want prices to spike because we've made capital too cheap. And so that's the kind of, dance that the Federal Reserve is doing. They really only have one tool, interest rate. And so, when you have one tool, everything is going to be a bit blunt. And so really what we need is a more unified effort among other parts of our financial system and our parts of our government to tackle this head on, not just leave it up to the Fed and leave it up to interest rates. Because if there's positive, sustained movement on price pressures getting lower, then that gives the Fed space to make capital cheaper without pushing us, you know, too far too fast and pushing us into a recession. Nobody wants that, but we have to be cognizant of these prices.
Yeah. And I do want to touch about that in just a second. I have a question actually just about that.
Okay.
Before I ask this question, Dr. Seagrave sent me an article. I think it was a Wall Street Journal or New York Times article just a few weeks ago that came out talking about how real estate asset prices in the US are 30 to 40% overvalued at the moment. Did you get a chance to see that article?
I did. He shared that one with me as well.
What were your thoughts?
I thought it was a little bit overblown, but I think there's some truth to it in that, when you have assets that have stale valuations, because they're transacted so infrequently and the rate of transaction has gone down substantially in the past couple of years. So we don't have as many fresh valuations. Then, you do really run the risk of having, this problem of overvaluation. So maybe it's not quite as big as that article would suggest, but I think that there are true pockets of perhaps, prices that you see on a spreadsheet are not really supported by the fundamentals of how those properties are operating.
Yeah. And I feel like in the center of the US here in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, right, Kansas, Missouri, even, we're shielded. We don't have those swings that the coasts have, right? And we're shielded. We don't see insane, appreciation in values, but we also don't see, steep drops in asset values. I agree with you that, having dry powder and being safe is something that you have to take into consideration when you're, underwriting a deal and doing that sensitivity analysis to understand what's going to happen to my cash flow. If, I go from a 4% interest rate to a 10% interest rate and playing with that a little bit. But to go back to what you were talking about earlier, my question was, could you talk to us a little bit about the intersection of public policy, real estate, finance, and especially how it comes into play with affordability and access?
Okay, that's a really big question. So I'll take a stab at it though, because when you're talking about public policy and real estate, you're talking about public policy at several different levels, from very highly localized, like what does your neighbor think about your project and what are they going to do to either push it forward or hold it back, to a citywide or countywide strategy that may come with incentives, carrots, sticks, to all the tools that they have at their disposal to shape the real estate market that they're operating within, and how much emphasis that city puts on property taxes as part of their budget versus how much is sales taxes, how much is from other things. And so that kind of sometimes will drive how much attention is paid in the policy space, because it's how much does it affect the city's budget. But then, you have state level policy as well. And so, sometimes state level policy may not, have that same effectiveness because it's trying to serve a lot of different markets with, unified policies. And then you get all the way up to the national level. And, there's, of course, you have HUD, you have your GSEs, that all, you can pull some levers on them. But when we're talking national, we're usually talking policy from the fiscal side. That's what's going to be the most directly impactful, not just, you change something nationally, that's going to trickle down to every property, either directly or indirectly. So, that's the one that you have to have, you always have to have an eye on, because that's really going to drive, your cost. That's you as an individual have the least impact over that. Any one individual doesn't, can't move those financial markets on their own. But you, as an individual investor or developer, depending on your scale, you may have a real opportunity to shape your neighborhood, a real opportunity to shape your city. So, you kind of have to take what comes at the state and federal level to some extent. You always want to be aware of it, but you have limited efforts and resources to deploy. Focus on your local city, focus on your neighborhood, focus on the things that you can actually impact. And just don't lose sleep over things you can't control at all.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for that. I guess a little bit about the Center for Real Estate Studies at TU. How do you stay engaged with the broader real estate community outside of academia? I know the answer a little bit, but I want you to share it with the world as well. And tell us, how could people also get involved if they were in the industry and they wanted to get a little bit more involved?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned at the beginning, those three pillars: professional engagement, research, and student experience as well. They all, it's a virtuous circle. So in our classes and in our student clubs and activities, we don't do those in isolation. We depend completely on our local and regional professional community to help make those meaningful for our students. So we have folks like you who serve as guest speakers in our classes, speakers for our real estate club events, and then on a more individual level, we also have a running database of professionals who are willing to engage one-on-one with our students. So that's that is an opportunity that I would immediately put anyone who's interested in interacting with our students and giving back to that community, direct them to that. And I can help facilitate that. But in my real estate principles class, one of my favorite assignments is that I pair students with two professionals in very different sectors of real estate and have them do 45-minute informational interview with them. Students kind of complain about it at first, like, oh, I have to go talk to this person I don't know, and it's going to be awkward, and I don't even know what their job is. I don't get it, and I have to do this outside of class. Grumble, grumble, grumble. But then when they write up their reports, it's really fun for me to read them and learn about the insights that the professional community was able to deliver to my students that I could not bring to them on my own. I'm one person. I have a wide base of knowledge, but I have my particular lane of expertise, and that is not going to align with what every student is interested in. And so being able to bring in the professional community to interact with our students and give them those little windows into what different paths in real estate could look like for them is something that's really, really meaningful. Another way that we're able to engage with the professional community is through our research arm. So we have in the past done some projects where we have, as a kind of third party, nonpartisan, academic organization, done analysis for organizations about, whatever problem they bring to us. And, sometimes that's just something that is worked on and, with a few professors. Other times it's something that we're able to bring students alongside. Just depends on the nature of what the question is. But through conducting research that's going to have very practical implications for, our client, all the way to, just being willing to spend an hour of your time with a student and, see where that goes.
Mhm.
What, I, every semester I have, people who sign up over and over again to do this informational interview assignment with our students because they just enjoy it that much. And so I'm
Yeah.
really thankful to all of them, and encourage anyone who's interested to get involved in that manner, and that's a great entry point.
Yeah, I'd love to get involved in that. That's something that I don't do right now. Well, finally, just one last question. Tell us a little bit about what is next for the Center for Real Estate Studies at TU. Any exciting initiatives? If any prospective students are out there and they're interested in getting involved, then maybe they're headed to TU this semester, next semester, and so on. What should they do, and what could they be looking forward to getting involved with?
Absolutely. So what we've done largely so far in the first couple years that we've operated has been very local,
Mhm.
which has been great, diving into the city of Tulsa as a kind of our own personal laboratory and getting to see a lot of sites, interact with a lot of folks who work in a lot of different areas of real estate within Tulsa. But we're, as we go into our third year and beyond, we're kind of going beyond those city borders, and we're taking students to do site tours in Oklahoma City. We're taking students to the ICSC annual conference in Las Vegas in May. And we're even partnering with one of our alums who's in Dubai. And
Wow.
we're going to bring some students to learn about a new development that they're doing out there. So if you're interested in seeing the intersection of that physical asset and financial asset, that kind of what the heart is of real estate, if you're interested in getting out there and learning, not just in the classroom, although that's a very important component of it, but then taking that and getting to apply it directly through going out and seeing things for yourself, that's what we're trying to move forward here. And I'm really excited about these opportunities that are coming up and that we're developing for our students today and, the students of the future here at the University of Tulsa.
Yeah, love it. I always am so excited to come speak and meet the students, and they all seem so engaged and excited about the program. So thank you so much, Meagan, for being here, talking to us, educating me, and our listeners, even though, it may not be many, but hopefully this word will spread to the masses. Appreciate your time, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to come talk with you today.
Thanks for listening to the Same Day Podcast. Tune in to a new show each week and be sure to subscribe to get future episodes.